Mr. James Bailey kept trying to act alright, but the reality of the needs in his house was biting hard. Just this morning, his wife was telling him that the milk was almost out completely. Last week, there was a letter in the mail to inquire about their inability to remit funds towards offsetting their mortgage. Bailey's mom was also scheduled for a chemotherapy session the following week. An evening before, Curtis called from school to remind them about the money for the trip to the Gold Strike mine in Eureka County for a 6-week field camp course with other members of his class. He was studying geology at the University of Nevada in Reno, and the trip was a requirement if he must graduate by summer the next year. Bailey hasn't lost his job, at least not yet, but he has only been receiving 30% of his total salary for almost 2 months now. The cash he had stored away in the family's emergency account has already been exhausted. Against his wish, he has had to borrow some bucks from a couple of friends, but even that is no longer enough. If nothing comes in before the end of the week, he wouldn't have any choice but sell his blue Chevrolet car. About 3 months ago, they had a new boss sent from the headquarters in Washington, D.C. It came in 2 days after Alfred Turner, the managing director, and 2 other accountants were sacked for what was described as a gross misappropriation of company funds. Bailey was very much aware of the fraudulent practices in the office under the watch of the MD, and have made it clear that he was not going to be a part of the fraud. For 3 years, the company was inflating its annual budget by more than $17 million. In addition to that, they were also guilty of tax frauds. On several occasions, Bailey had to challenge the records. When he seemed too much of a threat to Turner and the others, he was demoted from being the head of finance to the position of accounts officer. After the charges by the Security and Exchange Commission, 3 of them were found guilty of fraud. The implication for the company was to file for bankruptcy and to meet up to the demands of paying salaries. About 15 staff were laid off, while the remaining lucky ones will have to live on 30% salaries until the company was back on its feet. Bailey was reinstated as head of finance. Even though the actions of the former MD and his accomplices dented the public image of the organization, the swift decision of the Board of Trustees to straighten the records by presenting the offenders to be tried helped to salvage what was left of the company's shaky reputation. In no time, they were able to get investors again, and the fortunes of the almost sinking company were being revived. No sooner than his reinstatement, Bailey found himself in what seemed like another battle. He had prepared the budget proposal for the award of a contract with J&J Holdings and sent it over to the new MD, Jordan Cooper, to be signed before he finally appends his own signature. When the document returned to his desk, he noticed that the figures were altered with an increase of over $3 million. Puzzled by the new development, he took the documents to the MD himself to confirm what must have brought about the increase in the amount. I noticed that there was a change in the figures and I was wondering why. Bailey began. "Oh, that? Is there any problem about that?" Cooper asked with a soft smile. One cannot help but get softened by his smiles. "No, not really. I only saw that the figures were inflated and I cannot sign them." "Why?" "It isn't proper. That would be fraud." Cooper's smile immediately turned into a frown. He was no longer looking into the screen of the computer on his desk. His eyes were now fixed on Bailey. "Are you now going to tell me what is proper and what isn't in this office? Have you forgotten I'm the boss here? You shouldn't question my authority. Just do what I asked you to do." He paused. "Now get out of my office." "I cannot do what you're asking me to do. It's wrong." He stood up to go back to his office. "Mr. Bailey, please come back here." When Bailey turned, he discovered that the ever-charming smile has returned to Cooper's face again. I really want you to understand what is happening here. I know that what you have been receiving these past few months haven't been enough. This contract is an opportunity for us to make up for all the cash we have been missing out on, and nobody will know. He looked at Bailey again, quite intensely, as if he could see through his soul. Then he let out a chuckle. I think I know what you're thinking. You're wondering what's in it for you, yeah? Don't worry, I'll get even with you. But if you need a little more time to think about it, you've got till tomorrow. As he drove home that evening, Bailey kept thinking about the conversation he had with the managing director. This is an opportunity to get enough money to pay for his mom's chemo, his son's fee, and even the mortgage. When he shared with his wife what was going on, without even thinking about it, she told him that he must never consider doing that. You're a Christian, Anne. Christians don't do no fraud. The next day at work, the MD sent for Bailey. Have you made up your mind? Yes, Mr. Cooper. Excellent. So you've signed the budget, yeah? No. Like I told you before, I can't do that. I'm a Christian and I cannot disobey God. I'll rather resign than alter these figures. Christ, so you're more Christian than all of us, yeah? I knew you were going to turn down this great opportunity. Well, I'm sorry, but I don't think we will need your services here any longer. Cooper handed him a sealed envelope. That terminates your employment here. I prepared for it. At this point, Bailey felt he has made the biggest mistake of his life. When he tried to plead with the MD was already on the phone calling for security. Bailey was walked out of the company by the security men. His wife was standing by the veranda waiting for him when he got back home that afternoon. With dejection written all over his face, he handed over the letter to her without saying a word. She held his arms, pulled closer to him, and embraced him. It's not over. God is not done with you, she whispered into his ears. He walked into the house, leaving her behind. Before following him inside, she decided to read through the letter. When she read the content, she screamed for joy and ran into the house to meet him. Honey, it's a promotion letter. You're now the assistant managing director, she exclaimed. Almost immediately, Bailey's phone rang. It was Cooper calling. Congratulations, Mr. Bailey. You passed the test.